Hello, everyone. Welcome. The Mental Health Warriors is once again online and in person. And we're having a wonderful panel of gentlemen today that are going to share on men and their mental health. So I hope you have a glass of water, your favorite beverage, and you sit back and have a great listen because this topic is going to touch many souls. I'm Annette Chiappe, the self-care warrior, and we'll be right back on the Power Hour of Self-Care. And welcome back, gentlemen. How are you all today?
Doing fantastic. Thank you. How are you doing, Annette?
Great.
Absolutely
so
fantastic.
I have the comment box up. So I'm hoping that gentlemen and women alike are out there listening. I talked to so many people on the weekend when I was out doing my events and telling them, please tune in because you're not going to want to miss this conversation. And I'm going to introduce you all. Today we're having a panel of 6 gentlemen, and their names are, just wave when I say your name, Adam Duvall, our founder. And their names are, just wave when I say your name. I don't think Adam can hear us. Can you wave, Adam? Say hello.
He froze.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, well, we'll come back to him. Christopher, I don't know how to pronounce your last name.
Rausch.
Christopher Rausch. We have Guy. Pronounce your last name for me, please.
Rolando.
And we have Jeff Ash. And later on, Dr. Lauren Michael Harris will be joining us. He's just running a bit behind. And we have Robert Broker.
And
hello and welcome, Robert. So,
thank you.
We got everybody now?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Yeah, stupid laptops.
Yes, there's absolutely nothing we can do about technology, right?
I know.
So, maybe I can start with just a little brief summation of what each of you do, what brought you to the Mental Health Warriors. Of course, we know Adam, and the viewers all know Adam pretty well. But I am not familiar with each of you, so I need just a little bit of detail so we can get into our conversation. So we'll start with you, Christopher. I'm looking from left to right.
So you want the brief introduction? Well, I'm Christopher Rausch. I'm known as the No Excuses Coach. I reside here in Southern California with my amazing family. I'm the dad to a boy who's going to be 6 years old tomorrow. So I'm super excited about that. I'm a professional speaker. I host 2 weekly podcasts. I'm a former corporate person. I left corporate back in November 2019 to follow my passion, my dream of being a full-time life coach and professional speaker. And I'm excited to be here today with the fellow gentlemen on this panel to inspire you guys to think a little bit differently about your life.
Awesome. Thank you, Christopher. And yourself, Jeff?
Yeah, I'm a certified personal trainer, nutritionist, and intuitive eating coach. And so I focus on using intuitive eating in my approach to working with clients and I kind of focus my attention on men and then also with families to help them basically transform their relationship with food and their body in a little bit different way than it's typically approached through the fitness world. I take what's called a weight neutral approach. So the focus is not on changing the size and shape of your body, but rather on those things that are going to contribute to the underlying things that maybe have resulted in the issues that you struggle with food and your body image and those kinds of things. So health promoting behaviors, basically, which includes mental health and physical health.
Very awesome. And where are you based out of?
Houston, Texas.
Very nice. And thank you. And Adam, I'm going to skip you. We'll come back.
That's okay.
Robert, would you like to share a little bit about yourself and where you are?
Well, I'm in Toronto, Canada, and one person awarded me a title a few years ago, the Comment King, and I know many of you can attest to that, just simply but due to the verbosity of my comments. And sometimes I apologize for that because it seems to overtake the show, and not many people, not many others comment when I'm just going at it. I need to write a book or two. But I've known Adam for a long time. Back in our YouTube days, our YouTube show days, way back. And then I got to know Christopher and Annette. And I recognize Guy and Jeff, but I don't know you yet. So your friends I've not yet met. It's nice to meet you. And I do enjoy watching Annette's show. And
thank you very much, Robert. And Guy, will you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do and where you're based out of?
Certainly. I'm in Keystone, Colorado. We're right in a ski resort. Absolutely love it. We were just skiing this morning before we came for this interview. So it's our passion, hiking and biking in the summertime. It's just beautiful here. My story is probably a little bit different than most. I was an F-16 fighter pilot. I did that for over 20 years, traveled the world doing it all over the place. And then I was overseas for over 8 years straight. When I came back to the States, I really had a culture shock, trying to readjust back into the stateside living. And then I fell into business, into network marketing, and I would have success and it would fall apart. And so I was searching, I was seeking. I was one of those people, probably like many of your listeners, that are seeking for something better. And that's where I was. And this was several years ago, probably about 8, 9, 10 years ago now. And I found somebody that really helped me. So there's definitely help. Christopher, it sounds like you're helping a lot of people, Jeff and Robert as well as Adam and Annette. And so it's I was seeking, and I found somebody that I resonated with, that was able to really help me get unstuck. And I started following this person ongoing, very consistently. And I took the work very seriously. I'm now master certified in NLP, neuro-linguistics programming and stuff. But I also wrote a book about my journey and about those that I was helping, which became an Amazon bestseller. It's called Discovering Your Authentic Truth. And that's how Adam and I kind of connected as well. And I just love helping people. That is my bottom line. I love helping people. When I was an instructor with the F-16, I loved it when the light bulb went on. I know all you on this panel right here can relate that when you see that light bulb go on in their head, and all of a sudden now they're like, man, I see the world in a whole new way. Man, there's nothing you can put a price tag on for that feeling of being able to help guide somebody through that process. So thank you very much for inviting me here.
Oh, I'm so happy you're all here. Adam, you all set up there now?
Yeah, now I am.
Okay, so tell your viewers who you are.
Well, I'm just an average John, and no, obviously I'm Adam. I've been told I'm the founder and producer of this beautiful community, and I just like helping people like everyone else.
Most awesome. So I'll let the viewers and yourselves know who I am. For those of you who haven't met me prior, I am the hostess of the self-care show here as a mental health warrior. Adam introduced me last spring, I think it was, and I felt like I was home. My background was I was in the paralegal business, and I discovered it caused me undue stress and anxiety and depression. And I left it to follow my dream of helping others through mindfulness products and services. So I currently have published 4 mindfulness inner peace coloring books. So there's, and their titles is Love, Kindness, and Compassion. And I provide mindfulness classes and intuitive spiritual readings by using my mindfulness practices. I live in New Lowell, Canada, and that is like 30 minutes outside of Barrie, Ontario. So if you Google me, you'll see it's a little tiny dot on the map. But I have a she shed and I work from there. And usually I'm out there when the weather is nice, but it was kind of cold to be in there to have our podcast today. So that's me in a nutshell. I am here to help anybody. I usually attract helping more women than men, but the men that I talked to this weekend, I told them about the panel that we'd be talking about mental health for men, and there was a lot of interest. A lot of women wanted to get their husbands to watch. A lot of men that I spoke to said that they were struggling with their mental health at this time. And because I held the women's panel earlier in the summer, I think it was, or early fall, it was such a huge success. There was no way I was going to skip an opportunity to have a wonderful chat about helping men and helping other men with their mental health, because it's very dear and close to my own heart with my own family, and from my past experiences with men that I had relationships with. So I would like to share a little bit with you all about the statistics about Canadian. I don't have all the statistics about other places, but Adam and I'm sure one of you gentlemen from the United States can fill in some holes about statistics in other parts of the world. And I'll start there, and then we're going to just have a beautiful round talk and jump in and share with us a little bit about your stories, and let's help men get over and get through, and with loving support, to end the stigma that is so prevalent for men and with mental illness. And I feel all that for them, and I'm sure you've had tons and tons of experiences in your workplaces, in your careers, of how men are struggling out there and how we can help them. So I'll start there. My voice is cracking already. Okay. So I discovered when I Googled this that men and women experience many of the same mental health disorders, but very differently. Okay. And it says men are, however, very unwilling to talk and share about it because of the stigma around the perceived way men should be, like be a real man per se. And they're supposed to have this masculinity about them, and that being mentally ill, you no longer have any masculinity. And I was absolutely flabbergasted by that. So they are presented with great challenges to get help, and there is a lack of conversation about men and their mental illness, and what are the underlying conditions, and how do you deal with those underlying conditions for men. That's here in Canada. I'm absolutely positive you each are going to share the same story with me about where you are. And in Canada, I discovered that 10% face significant challenges, the ones that are ill, and that approximately 1 million men suffer depression, like every year. It's just astronomical. And that 4,000 Canadians take, what does it say here? Approximately 4,000 Canadians take their life. And as Adam had discovered as well, worldwide, it's 75% of men of that statistic. So if you have 100 people committing suicide, it's 75% of the men that have committed suicide. That's just unheard of. I mean, it threw me, really did. And Indigenous people here in Canada are really struggling as well. And I'm bringing that up because that was in the statistics I read. And and it's double of the average Canadian male, right? So you have Indigenous people in the world, here in Canada specifically, that is just double the problem. And gay men, they have a higher rate of depression, anxiety, suicide than their counterparts of heterosexuals. And they do more self-harm, and it's just very sad. Okay, so, I want to start a little bit with maybe one of you, Christopher or Guy, Jeff, one of you take the lead with, tell me a little bit about what's happening in the United States. Enlighten me, please.
Chris.
Enlighten you. I have some statistics up here. This is from Mental Health America, and it shows here that depression, over 6 million men suffer from depression each year. Most male depression often goes undiagnosed. Men are more likely to report fatigue, irritability, loss of interest in work or hobbies, and rather than feelings of sadness or worthiness. Bipolar disorder, 2.3 million Americans are affected by bipolar disorder. An equal amount of men and women develop the illness. The age of onset is between 16 and 25 years old. Psychosis and schizophrenia, approximately 3.5 million people in the United States are diagnosed with schizophrenia. It's one of the leading causes of disability. 90% of the people who are diagnosed with schizophrenia by age 30 are men. And the statistics go on and on and on. And I know for me personally, I've been running a men's health group on Clubhouse for the last year and a half, and it's been pretty amazing. Like you said, and that to sit there and speak to some of the statistics that are going on. Predominantly, my clients are mostly women, probably about 85-90% are women, because they're the ones that seem to be going out there and wanting that personal development, that growth, that next level, that next step in their growth pattern. But what was interesting is that people were coming to me and saying, "Man, Chris, you're such a masculine dude, but you're so raw and you're so unscripted and you're so vulnerable and you're always able to talk about your challenges and the things that I experienced when I was homeless. I was a homeless 13-year dropout. Sorry, I am so tired. A 13-year-old dropout in the 7th grade. I was on the streets for 4 years, battled depression. I tried to kill myself twice. Fortunately, I sucked at it. And it wasn't until I had a gun put to my head where I had to start making some serious decisions about my life. Otherwise, I was going to wind up dead or I was going to wind up in jail. And for me, taking responsibility for my life and recognizing my mother wasn't going to do it with her various psychological challenges and whatnot, I started getting around the right people and ultimately went back to school, got my GED, went to school for 12 years, got my master's degree, had a very successful corporate career, and now I'm living my dream, doing my speaking and my coaching. And I say that not to brag, but to sit there and to illustrate to everybody that no matter where you're at in your situation, for me personally, I've been in the lowest of lows. I've seen people in the lowest of lows. When we get real and raw about the situations that we're dealing with and we ask for help, asking for help is not a sign of weakness. Asking for help is a sign of strength. And I know for me personally, when I started asking people for help and started accepting the help, so many different great people and great opportunities came into my life. And now I just pay it forward by helping other people go through those experiences to realize their stronger self. So yeah, it's pretty sad out there, but there's a lot of opportunity for us to have amazing discussions like this. So thank you, Annette, for having this.
Oh, thank you. That's an incredible story. And I'm
Thank
so
you.
happy that you failed so miserably.
Yes, so am I.
Yes.
That's one way of saying it. And so, Guy.
Well,
do you wanna
yeah, I
give
was
us a
going to
little
throw
bit
out,
of-
I can't remember the doctor's name offhand. It's when I was during the research for my book, it's amazing the information that's out there. And like both of you, the statistics are mind boggling. The one that really got me was the suicidal rates. It's just uncalled for. There's no reason for it. But this doctor was saying, he was from Belgium, and he was saying how, and we all know this, but he put it into writing about, if you have some sort of physical ailment, it's totally normal to go see a doctor, to seek a medical professional. But if you have something going on mentally that's disturbing you, or that's keeping you from being your authentic truth or your joyous self, then that's not so much accepted in the realm of the dogma against it, I guess, if you will. And it's really sad that is the case. And I think the pioneers like Adam and yourself and what each of you are doing in trying to bring awareness that, hey, it's perfectly normal to not be normal. It's perfectly normal to not be 100% in your faculties, and life happens, right? If we're breathing, your life is happening to you, and it's how you respond and to those events that's going to challenge, how you make it through life. Are you going to be joyous and happy all the time, or are you going to be miserable and sad and depressed and end up trying to kill yourself? Obviously, there gets a lot more involved when you start getting into chemical imbalances of the brain and all that. But there are solutions for everybody, and it is not medication. It is going into the root level of what's creating the trauma or the disease, if you will, at the root level, and uncovering that. And then through proper therapies and people that are professionally trained in how to work a person through that, it should be perfectly acceptable. There should be 24-hour clinics where you can go walk in, hey, I'm mentally depressed, I'm thinking about killing myself. And you should be able to walk into that clinic and get help. But we don't have that here, at least not in America. And I would love for something like that to slowly develop at least. And again, it's going to take pioneers to do that, but it is perfectly normal, just as the statistics show. But seeking help is the first step. And you're right, many people won't. I was in an environment as a fighter pilot. I mean, it was all about ego and all about maintaining a certain high level of excellence. And you could not, I mean, if we shared any kind of mental distraught, we would be grounded in a heartbeat. That's not right. And so anyhow, I feel for the people that are hurting, and I really encourage them to seek help, professional help.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that, Guy. I'll just interrupt between guests just to share a little bit of my own story with men and mental health from a woman's perspective. I ended up divorced from my husband of 12 years, a long time ago, like the 1996 or so. But it went, I had no clue how mentally ill my husband was. I didn't even have a clue how ill I was at the time. But when I was reunited with my children, they told me the story of their father, and I was flabbergasted to learn that he had been sexually abused. And my level of compassion, like I had done a lot of healing over his abuse to me, and my level of compassion went through the roof for him, because I'm a survivor as well of sexual abuse. So to know that in life, you know, you meet people that mirror your own experiences a lot. This happened to me a lot on the weekend, doing some readings for some women. And to learn that my ex-husband went through that sort of trauma like myself was mind-blowing. Like, I literally, talking about it today, I get emotional, because you wouldn't want to wish that on your worst enemy. So imagine a man going through what a woman goes through. You're now in his shoes. He's now in your shoes. And the stigma, even surrounding just sexual abuse, is still there. So if any of you want to share on maybe something pertaining to that to help me to understand what a man would feel from his perspective, like, it's bad enough that a man would have to have the stigma to not be able to talk about, you know, maybe going to war and being traumatized by seeing their best friend shot or something. That's a hypothetical situation. But to step into my ex-husband's shoes, I can't even fathom how painful that would be for a male.
Yeah, I mean, I can speak to not the sexual abuse part, but the abuse part. You know, I grew up in a very loving home. Parents are about as perfect as you can get. But I ended up marrying my first wife, and she was extremely abusive toward myself. And then when we had kids, our kids also, and that was a 15-year marriage. She passed away in 2010, and that was an eye-opening experience for me, because I was very much of the mindset that if you were struggling with a mental health issue, you needed to just stop. You know what I mean? Like, if you were depressed, well, just stop being depressed, stop being sad. So it's very narrow, uninformed sort of viewpoint, when, you know, I'm going through these things myself and dealing with these things, and really what I had done was just push them down and didn't deal with them and pretended they didn't exist. And so once I was out of that, then I was able to start really addressing it and dealing with it. And so from the male perspective, is, you know, coming out of an abusive situation like that, there was a lot of the shame that I didn't stand up to her, that I allowed my kids to be treated the way they were, to go through the things that they went through, which turned out to be a lot worse than what I even was aware of, and all of those kinds of things. And then seeing them now and how they struggle and are kind of working through that even so many years later, and they will continue to for the rest of their life. But so I think from the male perspective, you have the stigma that, you know, you're a man, just man up. Mm-hmm. And then you also have the stigma around the fact that you were not strong enough to prevent it from happening to you, whether that was a sexual abuse or just abuse in general. especially when it's coming from a woman, because of the typical roles that we think, the man is supposed to be stronger than the woman. And if he's pushed around, then that speaks to his manhood and that kind of thing. So all of that kind of stuff, I think, is what makes it particularly difficult for men to come forward. And then also, we're just not taught. I mean, I was, but more because of modeled from my own father. But in general, we're not taught to share our feelings, or taught that it's okay to have feelings. It's okay to cry if you're a guy. It's okay to be sad and lonely and upset, and to have needs, and to need affection and all of those kinds of things. Those aren't typical things that we're taught as men. And so what we find with a lot of men is that the way that they express emotion is through anger. So they don't express their emotion in any other way. The only way they have to express it is anger. And so it often comes out as kind of an anger problem and that kind of thing. So I think all of those kinds of things just come together and make it really challenging for men to deal with mental health issues, and then also to come forward and seek help. Because again, not only have you been through something where you feel like maybe you shouldn't have allowed yourself to go through it, but now you're asking for help. And so just like what Christopher was saying, a lot of women, he tends to see them coming forward. That was the case for me until I just intentionally shifted my focus to addressing men with my message. So my podcast is Men's Intuition. My Instagram is Intuitive Eating Men. And so I'm really focusing in on that, trying to hone in on that message and let them know, hey, this isn't just for women, relationship with food, mental health, all of these kinds of things. And then also in being extra vulnerable myself, I think has been really helpful in that too. So
that thank you. Oh my God, that was amazing, Guy. Sorry, Jeff. I'm so emotional about the whole thing. I can't believe how deeply this is affecting me. I've been dealing with my mental health issues for a very long time. And to hear you gentlemen share your stories is just very moving. And I thank you for sharing. Robert, what would you like to share with us today? Tell us a little bit about what brought you on today. What do you think about what the gentlemen are sharing with us? Your own experiences. What would you like to share?
I'm a good example of someone that has learned how to, for most of the time, make depression happen for me. And my best natural medication is being the comment king, supporting people that inspire me. And Christopher and Adam are two of those people, and so are you. And it's a source of joy for me to be the reason someone else is smiling or laughing or chuckling. And you could say that my love of writing was discovered doing Ty Lopez's 67-step program, because that's where I discovered love of writing. Because you did a lot of writing in that, if you actually did it, and I did. And then to his coach that everyone wanted to know the identity of, well, I have a friendship with him too. And he doesn't like the limelight, but, and plus I can't remember his name at the moment, which is, hopefully he's not watching. He's a busy guy. Got a lot of kids, and he's a young man. But yeah, I know him too. I know him much better than I know Ty Lopez, because Ty Lopez was just kind of in and out and very busy, where the other fellow is like heart to heart and listening. But Adam, we used to do this show called The Three Old Dudes. It wasn't my idea, but the founder, we used to watch a Sunday show by Kamo Corena, and Simon had this idea to do a show that was more interactive with the audience. So he asked Dean and myself if we wanted to do a show. So yeah, when should we start? Tomorrow, I said. And so we did. Every Saturday morning, the three old dudes got together. Three middle-aged men got to know each other in front of an audience of their friends and a few others. And there were no filters. We didn't talk about religion or politics. And once I demonstrated why I didn't talk about politics, and I said some things that, had I said them in the U.S., might have gotten me arrested. But some things you're just not supposed to say about thinning the political ranks, that sort of thing. I didn't know that, but I'm not American, so what can I say? I did. YouTube wouldn't post it, so I had to snip that little bit out where I kind of blacked out in rage and what I said. So as soon as I snipped it out, YouTube was happy to post it, and away we went. But it lived on in the memory of those who saw it live, and yeah, I still laugh about it now because I saved that part, of course, and I think, wow, I can't believe I said that. And now, rage is something that is a stranger to me. A friend of mine, he gave me a gift. Tony J. Salimi, some of you might know him as the thesis coach. He's on a personal mission to help 1 billion people on the earth. And I got to know him as a brand ambassador for an empowerment company. And I used to be able to do live streams for him because I bought a ticket for this big event to be a speaker on the platform and all this. Because I was the first, I got to be in all these live streams with many of these people that were way above me. And I always liked Tony because when I say, I love that man, he always blushes. And I'm not gay. Tony does, and that's cool. But maybe that's why he blushes. But I love to say that with enthusiasm when he's listening, because it's true. When I first met him, when I first started watching his videos, I could type in the comments what he was going to say as he was saying it. That's where we were both at that time. And yeah, and that's taking into account the delay and everything. I knew what he was going to say because I could feel it. When I first met him, I first saw him, it was a recorded interview. As soon as he introduced himself, it was like a steel girder slammed into my spine. And I knew I was connected to him somehow. And I still can't explain what that is, how. But
may I interrupt you, Robert?
Yeah, go ahead. I
love how you said that you have a connection to another male, which I find in my experiences with chatting with men that there's a lot of misconceived or misinterpreted connections between men, that if you like another man or you love another man, you must be gay. Now, that in itself is a stigma. Yeah. And it would cause this distance between having healthy relationships with a fellow male. I mean, doesn't make any sense to me. Women don't have that.
Yeah, it's closer than as if he was my brother.
Yeah.
It's I can feel it in my heart. I knew him as soon as he said his name, I knew who he was. And that's all I can say. It was like I said, a steel girder slamming into my spine.
You sound like you're intuitive.
It's possible.
Yes. Well, let's get our founder on. Let's let Adam talk a little bit. We can't leave you out, Adam.
It's all right.
No, I want a little bit about. You had shared with me on the feed about the different statistics. You want to share that with the rest of the people that you shared?
Yeah.
With me?
Well, obviously, what I've got here from the UK, it says 1 in 8 men in England has suffered from a mental health issue. That's 3 out of 4 suicides are by men, which is equivalent to 75%. So that's just in the UK, and that's this year. So it's still pretty high. So obviously, podcasts like this will actually encourage people to say, let's talk. But after listening to all of your legends, it's like us men are practically being brainwashed into blocking out that feminine side, that vulnerability side, and always been masculine. And that's what pees me off sometimes, because it's like, yeah, show it. Because when you're showing vulnerability, you're showing your strength.
Yes.
Well, I think that's an interesting point that you say, show that feminine side, because I think that the problem is that we think of expressing emotion, love, these kinds of things. We tend to think of those as girl things. We think of eating disorders as a girl thing. We think of all these other things as feminine, when in reality, I think that's the problem. I don't think it's that we're not showing our feminine side. I think it's that we're that we're saying that there's this feminine side. I mean, there are differences biologically and between men and women, and I firmly believe that we have different roles and different strengths and weaknesses. But at the same time, I think sometimes we have this false dichotomy that expressing emotion and feeling and being a nurturing person and all of that's our feminine side, and that it's strong and grit and determination is our masculine side. And it's like, no, it's just, we're human beings, and all of us have a need for all those different sides. Women need to be strong and determined and have those kinds of characteristics and qualities, and men need to be nurturing and loving and supportive and encouraging. And
Absolutely.
yeah, I mean, those need to be a part of all of us. It's a human thing. It's not just a male or a female thing.
Absolutely.
I agree. Totally agree.
true.
Yeah.
I work with I worked with, but she's remained a very dear friend of mine, a transformational coach. And she works with people to unite the masculine and the feminine sides of either sex, to bring them more into balance. And her coaching was priceless for me to understand and embrace both sides of myself. I am a being in a female body, and I share the same emotions as a male does. So why would I reject or not embrace my masculine side as well as my feminine side? And I strongly suggest that to any viewer today, that any male viewer that is watching today, to please do the same, because your feminine side is a gift just as much as your masculine side. It is a strength that nurtures children. All of you, are you fathers?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So those of you that are fathers, speaking from my current situation, my son has recently become a father, and the struggles I see him go through trying to take care of his daughter on his own it's like it's opened my eyes to see the genuine soft side of a male. Like I see in him more of the nurturing side, like myself, than I did of his father. He does not have the traits of that caring, nurturing side. My ex-husband just didn't possess it that way. I mean, I think it was conditioning. It's a lot of conditioning for men to be, okay, well, I'm putting the food on the plate and I go to work and da 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 da, and I fix the car. But what about the time you share with your children? What about, like, I hear stories from Adam all the time about how he struggles with his 2 autistic children, and God bless him, because that's like double the difficulty, right? I've worked with autistic children, and I know how they can lose their minds at time, just like the rest of us. And seeing my son as a father and being that nurturing, it gives me a lot of joy. So that it's somewhere along the line, someone, taught him right. I mean, I was estranged from them for a very long time. So I congratulate you all being fathers, and I'm sure because of who you are today that you're very nurturing with all of them. Then you want to share on what I just shared?
Yeah, I'd like to share something. It goes back to what you were talking with your abuse, and what Jeff was sharing a little bit as well as a lot of people. So the challenge with a lot of people is, and you may have found yourself saying this to yourself at one point. I know a lot of people that are depressed and that are struggling. One of the first things they'll say, "What's wrong with me? Why is this happening to me?" And those are very disempowering. That's very disempowering language. It's also very, it's not good. It's not healthy, right? And that in itself is a big signal that there's something deeper going on. So one of the ways I like to explain this is that when we're born in love. We're a loving being, right? And you think about the happy baby. Not all babies are happy, of course, but in general, the happy baby, right? It doesn't know any different. It's just living within its spirit and its soul. And then it starts to grow up, and then life happens. And we know that the first 7 years of living, and it can even go back into the womb, it can go back generations. There's all different kinds of theories on all this. But what's important is how the subconscious mind is programmed with this information. That's the most important thing. Not necessarily how it got there, but that it's there. So when you start growing up and you start going through those adolescent years, life happens, right? Again, life is happening. And the little things here and there will interject, and it will start to disconnecting us from who we really are. And the further that disconnection, the greater that self-infliction of what's wrong with me becomes powerful. And for some people, they can manage it. For other people, they can't. And they go down this really big, slippery slope. And a lot of it's well outside our control. But we feel it's our fault. How many times have you spoken with or read about the child who the parents were going through a divorce, whatever, something going on with the parents, and the child takes it on themselves? It's something I did. It's my fault. I did this. I did that. That created that incident. Or they get constantly abused by their parent, one or both, and they're like, there's something wrong with me. So all that is being imprinted deep within the subconscious mind. Now you fast forward, by the time you're an adult and you're trying to figure all this out, life is your results that you've been getting in life are showing up in a certain way. And if you trace it back, the results are a result of your behaviors and your actions and your beliefs. But what's driving all that? Most Western trained psychologists are going to start with the behaviors, go down so far as the behaviors, but there's something deeper than that. And that's your core values. Yes. And it's unearthing those core values and how that during those early imprinting years that your subconscious mind was programmed with safety nets on how to protect yourself that maybe served you back then, but it no longer serves you as an adult. It's about uncovering that at a very deep root level and teaching the subconscious mind that, hey, there's nothing wrong with you. This has been your protection mode up until now, but it's no longer serving you. Let's see if we can find a better way for you to be able to get through this life.
Yeah. And saying that, Guy, sorry, did you want to say something, Christopher?
No, I was just saying, well said.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And talking about that, Guy, it's very I think a lot of times when we were growing up as children and you get the parents who are the continuing pattern of what am I trying to say? The continuing conditioning of people, right?
Yeah.
Whether you're male or female, that conditioning has harmed us so profoundly that only today are we really starting to dig away at the surface of how to get ourselves back to the light of the consciousness of that we're not all this suffering, right? That we can become kind and caring and loving to one another and to ourselves, especially
to the self. Exactly, Annette. That's what that's the whole key to this is bringing that. So you get that disconnection from that authentic love for yourself because of the conditioning that's happened. And it's about having that person fall back in love with themselves first. You can't love anyone else authentically or truly unless you love that. The love is deep inside you, and you're loving who you truly are at your core center being. And when you have that, everything else changes. You see the beauty and the love and the appreciation and everything around you, including the people. Absolutely.
Yeah, I want to add to that, and this is why I actually blame partly for the education here, because we're being programmed where if we're wanting to talk and express how we feel to, for example, another friend growing up, we're being programmed by these teachers to say, no, sit down, shut up, put your hand up when you want to talk. And that needs to pee off, if I say.
Yeah.
People should be allowed to express how they feel.
There is, I believe there's a time and a space that is in every system that is going to crumble apart because we're out here. Because you gentlemen have come forward to share today about men and mental health, and because me as a woman care profoundly that I want to see men get better. I see all examples all over the place by my experiences working with women. I've had several incidents happen where there is no time or space for men to heal. And I literally say that because men have approached me for my services. Now, maybe it's because I am a female. I don't know, that maybe they don't feel trust with me. I don't know. I didn't get deep into what they wanted to talk to me about, but they approached me. I had a conversation with them about how, what services I provide, and they start the process, but then they walked away. And I know I can't help everybody, but that in itself appeared to me as an indicator that, one, of course, I'm not everybody's cup of tea. I'm not going to be able to help everyone. But two, it also felt like these men were so desperate for help that they reached out. At least they reached out, right? But I pray that they went somewhere and found the help they needed, because keep trying, right? And that one, I want to leap into, what do you guys see as the visible signs? Like, I've got some stuff here about the visible signs of when men are under duress and having mental health issues. And some of them were personality changes, excess anxiety, depression, loss of interest, noticeable lack of ability to think clearly or communicate or articulate their thoughts, like in a concise manner, and increased use of substances. Now, substances is like a whole different topic for another day, but I would absolutely 100% agree with this, because my experiences with previous relationships, these categories themselves were so prevalent in my relationships that I had to walk away from these relationships because they were so bad. And it was, if I was who I am back then, if I was who I am today with the knowledge I have today from everything you guys have shared, I have that knowledge. If I had been able to be there for that person at that time, for that man, I probably would have succeeded in the relationship. But of course, again, like Guy said, self-love. I had to walk away from wonderful people who only were struggling with mental health issues. And many relationships deteriorate because we're not conscious of that man or that woman could be just my identical person suffering with a mental illness. And it's not the end. I mean, there are some toxic relationships you cannot stay in. Perhaps, Jeff's story relates to that. And my own with my ex-husband, you can't stay with somebody who's physically abusive. So,
or shouldn't.
have you guys seen or felt that? And, how do we support men? How do we support men to open up about, I'm a man and I have mental illness? Please.
Well, I think that's the point right there, isn't it? Is the thing I found most of all, like not really doing it on purpose, but just doing my shows and just doing Clubhouse and just talking to everybody, is being open and honest. Like I think what Guy said, the first love is the only love. I've talked to over a couple of hundred people during COVID. It's been my way of just giving back people free coaching sessions just to keep them inspired. Just my way to connect with people. My gift, I can give it out free, to certain people. And over the course of COVID, I started seeing a pattern with people. And again, it was a mix between men and women, a lot more majority of women. And I started asking this question. I felt this whisper to ask this question: do you love yourself? Yes or no? And I thought at the time I asked it was a stupid question. I'm like, of course these people love themselves. I mean, they're seeking out personal development. 75%. Again, that 75% number seems to be popping back up. 75% of the people, I took record of it, were like, oh, Chris, well, I think I do, and partly do. And then they would come up with all these different reasons why they don't, or the different challenges they had. So number one, first and foremost, is we got to be honest with ourselves, right? Ask yourself right now in this moment, am I happy with myself? Do I love myself? Yes or no? And be honest with yourself. And it's actually better than okay to say, yes, no, I'm not happy with myself, because at that particular point, guys, you can start taking those progressive actions and say, okay, what is one step I could take right now that would show myself a little bit of self-love? Taking care of myself, my nutrition, my hydration, my sleep, my exercise. Just start doing a couple of those things. Those foundational things will start to open up your clarity. And as you start to ask for help, as you start to go out there and have these discussions, that growth pattern will start to happen. We can't shift the results of what has happened for the last 30 years of our lives overnight, but we can sit there and we can do a lot of work, and we can do a lot of proactive actions and steps, and to find ourselves in 2 or 3, 5 years to be able to say, I'm on the other side of this, and now I'm out there advocating and helping other people. What I personally do is I go out there and I flip my phone, whether it's my Facebook messages, my Instagram messages, my text messages, once a week, and I'll flip through and I'll find 4 or 5 people, and I'll just text them, hey, we haven't talked in a while. How's everything going? What's going on? How are you doing? Are you getting through these times? And then I watch for how their responses are. Oh, I'm fine. Everything's great. Okay. What are the couple of things that are making you smile in your life right now? By asking a couple of questions, you can start to get to the nitty gritty of what's going on with your friends and even your business associates and vendors and things of that nature. I don't discriminate. Whoever comes up, I text them, I call them. And as I feel like that's some sort of message for me to do that. And God's honest truth, probably about 30 to 50% of those people, if I ask a couple of questions, hey, let's jump on a phone call, I'll find out that they're hiding a bunch of things that are going on inside. And just to be able to have that sounding board, that safe space to be able to talk about what's going on, and then to be able to ask them a couple of questions like, what do you think are a couple of things that you could do? You'll start taking ownership and responsibility for changing your perspective about that. How can you start to see life as happening for you and not to you, and just be able to shift that and take some responsibility, get resourceful with whatever your options you have. Because once we identify that we're not happy and we start taking those progressive action steps and we start feeling better, all of that stuff starts to bleed on each other and starts to grow and interconnect with one another. And it's not overnight and it's not easy, but it is essentially worth it. And I could go on the subject for all day long, but I'll digress to my fellow comrades.
I know Robert wanted to jump in, but I want to tag on to that, Christopher, because that is so powerful what you just said. And I know in the work that I've done, and I don't, this isn't my profession, it's something I kind of do on the side, but the number one reason we start diving into all this is a lack of self-worth. And so not only, another great question to ask people is not only do you love yourself, the other one is, do you value yourself?
Yeah.
It's powerful. You'll be amazed the responses you get with that one.
Yeah.
Working on that one.
Nice.
Working on the value part. I love myself. Yes, I can say that. It hasn't been that long, but once I was able to say it, I was able to look back at my life, and based on how I've consistently treated other people, I saw that I've always loved myself. I just didn't have enough context to realize it.
Yes,
value
that's
myself.
a very, very good description, Robert. Thank you.
Thank you.
And when it comes to when we're stuck, each of us are struggling with something, right? I don't know what you, Christopher, Jeff, Guy, Robert, what you may be right at this moment. Something, it could be big, it could be small, what you're struggling. I know Adam message I love, because Adam reaches out to me almost on a daily basis, and he's struggling, and I feel it. And I know this whole thing around the school system with his children is a nightmare for him. And I want to send you love, Adam. I do. I really do. You and Carrie are like the rock.
Well, thing is, when it comes to the system, am I finding it hard? Yes, I am. But I listen to Eric Thomas all the time. Eric Thomas, Les Brown.
Who's Eric Thomas?
To all them. Eric Thomas is a motivational speaker.
Oh.
And I listen to them all the time. And he actually came out and said, do you find things hard? Good. It's hard, but it's not impossible. And that's glued in me. And that's what motivates me to keep pushing all the time.
Yeah. Oh, awesome. I love to hear that. I'm so happy that you work on your own self-care. And guys, because my show is called The Power Hour of Self-Care, I want to share, before we wrap things up, how we can support men and how can we support their partners, whether they're in a gay relationship or straight or on their own. I mean, this is only a few examples of what it was on the search engine that I did on this, but it says how to support men. 1, become better informed. Right? You guys are out there doing your stuff and getting people informed. Thank you. 2, ask what you can do. If you see a man out there, viewers, and he's struggling, and it could be the smallest thing. If if he's, I don't know what kind of example can put, if he's angry all the time, right? You can say, what can I do for you? Right. And just the next thing is just listen, right? We women are so good at yakety yakety yakety.
Yeah.
But are we truly listening, right? And are your buddies listening? Are your guys, if you go have a beer with them, do they shut up and listen to you while you're downloading all this stuff? They need their people to listen to them. Take care of yourself. Absolutely. And what it looks like for you, it may be different for somebody else, but all the power to you, whether you have to go skiing or you like to do archery. You might like to paint. I have coloring books. Don't blame or judge, right? Who's the first person not to step in somebody else's shoes should be looking at their own judgment of themselves, because we all suffer. And to judge somebody when they have a mental illness, I don't care what sex you are, is you're not enlightened. And we have to be compassionate to those people so that we don't continue this pattern, and guide them to the appropriate help. Right there, I hear day in and day out with people I talk to, where do I go for help? There's no help. There's no government assistance. Well, you know what? We're the mental health warriors for a reason, and that's why we're all here. And you guys being our guests is what makes this better. And be optimistic and encouraging. When somebody comes to you with they're struggling, they're challenged with something, don't say, oh, it's going to get better, but be the example. I share with people everywhere I go, this is who I was. I had complex post-traumatic stress disorder. This is where I was, this is what I did, and this is where I am today. And be optimistic, be encouraging. You're not, when they're in their deepest, darkest spot and they're that close to suicide, you go and telling somebody it's going to get over it, or, it's not helpful. And we talk about this all the time on the Mental Health Warriors. So, if you guys want to please just keep doing what you're doing. You're amazing. Thank you for making me feel amazing today as having you as my guest. And, you've opened my heart and my mind to being able to approach men better, because trust me, because of my history, I have difficulty approaching men. And I want viewers to know that although I may struggle being around certain energy, it's not you specific. It's my past that triggers me at times. And men that help men you're my own warriors. Thank you. And if you want to have any closing words, we're going to wrap up in a couple of minutes, but share your information. Please like and subscribe to the Mental Health Warriors. These gentlemen have been a great light for today. I hope people who watch this and later on and repeat will share it with their families and friends for the men that are struggling. And let's get that suicide rate down for men.
Yeah, and Annette, I just want to build on something. Thank you so much for having us here. Definitely appreciate the conversation with you, amazing gentlemen, and yourself, Annette. The one thing I wanted to just dovetail off on what you were just talking about is when we're talking to our brothers and our sisters and we're having those conversations. One of the things that I see people doing, and I don't think it's any intention, but we do the one-upsmanship game. Like somebody will call me and say, "Oh my God, my day is going so terrible and this is bad." And instead of us listening to that person and say, "Hey, tell me more about that," what do? "Oh my God, if you think your day is going bad, then da 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 da." Well, you think your day. We do this one-upsmanship bullshit. We got to stop doing that. We got to sit there and have empathy and forgiveness to be able to listen to people and sit there and say, "Hey, tell me more about that. How serious is that? What are things that you're finding that are helping?" And you got to look for those subtle signs, like, "Oh, I've tried that and nothing works." You got to listen to the language of what people are saying. Nothing and everything. If you hear those words, those for me are beacon words. If you're somebody, "Oh, nothing and everything," you got to sit there and dig deeper and to go out and have more conversations with those individuals. So definitely that. My recommendation for people, it's pretty amazing. It's a video on YouTube. It's called The Joseph Campbell Story, The Hero's Journey. Go out there and check that out, ladies and gentlemen. It talks about the fact that we go through these peaks and these valleys throughout our lives. It's about 1 hour and 23 minutes. It's free. And it talks about how we go through these warriors' journeys and what we got to do when we're going through those valleys. We got to sit there and we got to ask ourselves the right questions. We got to start taking those proactive steps and actions to self-nurture ourselves and to love ourselves and to ask for that help. Open mouths get fed, ladies and gentlemen. Just to sit there and to stand there and think that you're a warrior and you're going to be strong and I'm the manly person. I'm living up to all these stereotypes I see in the cowboy movies and the Sylvester Stallone movies, and I'm going to do this until I break. That's bullshit, guys. If you're having a tough time, open your mouth and talk about it. And if people are making fun of you and joking around about it, you need to find new people, because I'm living proof. When you get around the right people, it's amazing what it is that you can do in your life. I'm Christopher Roush, the No Excuses Coach. You can go to noexcusescoach.com. You can find out all things about me, and I would love to be able to be a part of your life and your journey to help you guys. So thank you, Annette, for having us here.
Questions are the answer.
Yes.
Asking questions is the answer.
Oh, there's that thing again.
Yeah, that
That's
big part
strange.
of big part of my coaching is curiosity. I think that's a good thing. What you were saying about questions, it's just getting curious about why it is that you're in the situation you're in, and what you were saying, Christopher, was just really powerful. And you asking and getting curious when you ask somebody that question, "How are you?" and they say, "Oh, I'm good." That's not just moving on and saying, "Oh, they're good," but actually getting a little more curious. Well, what's so good? I liked what you said there. So tell me what's good, because if somebody says, "Oh yeah, it's good," well then if they're not, if they're genuinely doing well, then there's probably something they can share. And if not, which is most likely the case, there's probably something they're struggling with.
So single word answers.
Yeah. I loved what you
That's
said
very
there.
true.
I thought that was really helpful.
It was awesome.
Thank you.
Well, I definitely think that we should have made this a 2-hour show. But gentlemen, I would love to do this
Let's
again,
do it again.
today.
We'll do it again.
Taught me so much. And
Thank you.
so if you like, please, share, like, and subscribe, viewers. So we're here to help end the stigma around mental illness. We're here for you. Reach out. And gentlemen, it's been a huge pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And I love your show, as you know.
And with that,
I know you
say
do.
our goodbyes. And
Bye, guys.
We'll all talk
See you
again in
soon,
the future,
some of
I'm
you.
sure.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Be well.
Great being here with you guys. Thank you. Brilliant. That went